Good evening, everyone. DRBMiller here. How are you all doing? Have you had a good day? Have you had a good weekend? I certainly did. As you know, I've been testing Anthem VIP demo literally throughout the whole weekend. And although there were some technical problems, at the end of it all, I loved it. I really enjoyed this wonderful, mysterious, distant Anthem universe, which is given to us by BioWare and presented first of all during this weekend for those who have purchased the either the base game or the Legion of Dawn special edition and pre-ordered, or indeed if you were members of EA Origins. So to a degree it was a limited access to the demo, and quite a few of us had some difficulties on Friday when we attempted to access it, but obviously this was to do with the overwhelming number of gamers coming in and trying to play the demo literally from the word go, which in fact exceeded all expectations, inclusive of all the gamers worldwide and the BioWare technical development team. So if you looked on Twitter, there were lots of concerns and complaints about, first of all, not being able to access the game. Secondly, there were some connectivity problems. Then once you accessed the game, you had loading, which was infinite. There were lots of different problems right at the beginning. But you know what? Let's just focus on what we've seen rather than all these technical issues. I will actually recap on a few of those at the end. First of all, Anthem is a game like no other that BioWare had produced before, and although on one hand when you enter this world it does resemble Mass Effect Trilogy, you are initially introduced to several characters, and very quickly once you get into your Javelin suit you realize that this is a completely different universe which you're facing. And once you get out there in the wild, you are being confronted by so many different enemies and so many different challenges which obviously are there for you to resolve. And firstly, I have to commend the BioWare team on phenomenal visual aspect of the game. It really looks staggering. When you get into the Fort Tarvis, the base, you really are almost like entering some sort of Middle Eastern den, which is full of different bizarre places with lots of different characters hovering about, coming in and going, talking to you, and indeed lots of different cafes and places of interest which you could revisit, lots of different basements and cellars with items and characters hidden, so plenty for you to explore. And indeed you can simply slowly walk around, look at everyone, explore every single item, engage with those when they want to talk to you. You do have 2 or 3 different types of characters out there. One lot will not talk to you, they'll be just drinking their tea and minding their own business. The other lot will talk at you without you being able to respond. And the third, which is obviously the most important one, is the lot that is going to talk to you about all sorts of things, the base and the Anthem world related, and you can engage, you can ask questions, you can answer their requests. I've heard from the developer that and that is evident on the demo, you have 2 options presented when asked the question rather than 5 or 6, which in fact is narrowing your choices. It will be more of a straightforward type of conversation. But by saying that, there are many characters out there, literally right from the word go, when you start walking, all of them want to talk to you and you can engage. So there will be lots of things to be discussed with them. There are many different quests which we are likely to be receiving from them as we carry on. It's very important that you pursue a particular type of decision-making process. So if you are likely to be mischievous, you need to stay mischievous throughout the game. If you want to be stern and soldier-like, then you focus on that, and therefore the options and the game development will follow suit. So first of all, we had started with Matthias, who was giving us some instructions, and then we pursued 2 separate missions, which were giving us a taster of the game overall. I have to say that the missions looked very enjoyable. The first one in fact was very different to the usual, because we were not just doing some firefights but facing a very difficult puzzle. And it did take a bit of time for me and my teammates to work out what we were to do, because you have 4 different shapes which require a particular color, and they need to be all aligned. I need to find out what color needs to go where. So really quite tricky, but also very enjoyable. and as a team you are obviously able to resolve that much quicker than if you were doing everything by yourself. So coming back to the basic viewpoint and the concept that BioWare had introduced, you will remember when the Mass Effect came out initially, there were some concerns that we had a fire team of 3, but we could control only just one player, i.e. Commander Shepard. And this is completely resolved here. You are either playing as a single player or entering a team of 4, and indeed you can play with 4 random players in the game, or you can invite your friends to join you at any given stage, and they will join you in their javelin suits and obviously combat the enemy which you are going to be facing in the wild. So that's terrific. The first thing you notice when you start walking in javelin suit, that the movement is very, very placid. You are able to move very, very easily everywhere. You have different options on walking, running, or flying, and the controls are very, very easy to use. Secondly, when you pull out your weapon, you'll see that the aiming is very, very precise, and the actual hit ratio will be massively improved when you are directing your weapon at the enemy and making sure that you're hitting them either in torso or in the head. So the actual combat sequences therefore are made very interesting, and you are confronted by a very, very large number of different types of enemies with various strengths and firepower, and therefore you are then either able to use various skills, various abilities, and those are quite similar to what we've seen in Bungie's Destiny. In there they're called subclasses. In here I'm not exactly sure exactly how they're named, as I played just a demo, but they are very pertinent. When I donned my second javelin suit, which was called Storm, I was able to use something which was freezing the enemies to death, and this was also effective on various machine guns and turrets and tanks and all sorts of enemies which were facing me out there, and I was able to use it very effectively combined with my automatic weapons and all of the kit I had on me. So as we start, we are firstly facing those 2 quests. They're giving us a very, very good introduction on what the game is likely to be with our story missions. It's a mixture of RPG with lots of communication between different characters, and then a combination of FPS, well, you could say third-person shooter, and indeed a lot of puzzles in there as well. When you play the game, when you get into that arena of combat, you can be either pursuing your task instantly, or you can be exploring that area and obviously discovering lots of different creatures and items which are scattered around. So it's very important to remember that they are bringing in this massive big open world which is similar to Fallout, and therefore it's open out there for you to enjoy, to explore, to meet new characters, to make new friends, to discover new enemies, and fight your way through. So that really was astonishing. And also the storyline seemed very nicely composed. It was very easy to follow. The dialogue was very clearly understood, and when coming to the actual plot, I was able to piece things together and get a very clear direction on who my enemies were, what I needed to do, and everything else, which is not the case in some of the games that somewhat have a greater difficulty of understanding the plot right at the beginning, meaning you are being snowed under with lots of different facts and ideas, and therefore it will take a bit of time to resolve what direction to pursue. This is not the case with Anthem. It's very straightforward, very simple, very enjoyable, and with very clear tasks ahead of you. What I particularly liked was the game's menu. You can click it. You can click your. Well, I was playing it on PlayStation 4, so I was using my touchpad or my options button, and you get one spread which gives stats and the map, and then the other with various options. The other, which I was getting after clicking on my options button, was very similar to Mass Effect. There's one section called Library, and in that library you have a lot of information on literally everything Anthem related. That includes your kit, your weaponry, your javelin suit, your friends and foes, the types of enemies that you're likely to be facing. Every single character who is likely to be met in Anthem will be described there. So it's very useful because you can study some of that in advance and get obviously knowledge and experience prior to encountering them out there. On the other hand, you can be using this as you go along, meaning when you are facing certain missions and you're confronted with some unknown enemies, you can just look it up in the library and then find out on whatever is for you to do, and Very importantly, what types of weapons you may need to be using in order to defeat the enemy. Some of them appear to be very difficult in combat, I have to admit. They looked also particularly menacing. Many of them resembled some form of insects, but they were really fast, and indeed they were very capable of hitting at me from certain altitudes, if they were, for instance, elevated or perhaps flying around, and actually flying quite fast and with weaponry which was appearing to be very precise and hitting me with accuracy. So combat sequences are quite difficult. I had to be moving quite a bit. I had to run around, take cover, and indeed combine my activity with the rest of the team. I was able to play several missions by myself, but the vast majority were done in a team of 4. And to my great pleasure, I could see that other members were using different javelin suits, meaning that we were able to experience also their capacity for combat and various subclass powers which they all held. I liked my ranger a lot, and indeed I fell in love with my storm javelin suit, as enabled me to fly around with ease and then explore different areas which otherwise perhaps I had to walk through. And I tested 2 separate suits. One was Ranger, the other one was Storm. Regrettably, I had no time to engage with the other 2 suits. The reason for that was quite simple. There was no time, and the technical issues were interfering with the gameplay. So therefore, we were focusing on completing our story missions first in order to level up, and then we were playing the attack on Stronghold, which in this case was focused on a creature called Swarm Tyrant, and this Swarm Tyrant was incredibly menacing. Our subclass powers and our effort in order to defeat him. In fact, I did manage to defeat him a couple of times with my teams, and I got killed quite a few times also during the process. But the trouble we had was that right at the end, as the Swarm Tyrant was about to be destroyed, then the game crashed, and we were sort of prevented from seeing both the end of this dreadful beast as well as our scores collected right at the end. I really have to mention that there are lots of items which you can collect throughout the gameplay, and after very difficult combat missions, which are literally throughout the entire, well, any of your missions which are proceeding throughout the game, you are able to collect a number of goodies, and depending on the difficulty level that you basically had set up for yourself, then the goodies are going to be of a certain rank, meaning if you're playing on an easy level, you will get lots of goodies, but perhaps they will not be as pertinent as those if you were pursuing the hard difficulty level. I was able to collect some coins, and then some weapons and some ammunition and all sorts. Unfortunately, I'm not exactly sure how this will work in the full game, because lots of different bits in the demo were actually disabled, meaning that we could just use them once the full game was released, that once we enter the full game Anthem. So that was not possible for issues like the vault. I wasn't able to find out how to use it, and also the completion of certain tasks which are automated, basically the collection of achievements, and you had a miss ratio and all of that was not fully enabled for the demo. So what's the conclusion at the end? Well, first of all, I have to tell you that the Anthem world looks astonishing. It is well developed, it is vast, there are lots of different areas to which we can go, and there are lots of different enemies, characters and items to be discovered, contested, collected and engaged with. So there will be many hours of gameplay spent on Anthem for sure, and visually the game is second to none. Really, I would say probably it looks by far the best compared to all the other BioWare games. Everything in it seems to have been really thought through. There's been a lot of attention given to detail, be it from items which are left on certain tables in your environment to the way characters talk to you. And obviously the content of the conversation is equally important. Everything has been well researched and well presented. And then on the other hand, what I particularly like is that I have the mobility, which is greatly enhanced. It's better than in some of the other BioWare games. And I have this multitude of different subclass abilities which I can use when confronting the enemy, and all of that looked really great. I posted several videos of my gameplay to my Twitter, And if you're quite interested in how these subclasses work together with your firepower, you can have a look, because I was using the freezing subclass in order to freeze the enemies, and then as soon as they were frozen, I was hitting them with my automatic weapon, and that really worked quite well on many of the enemies. Not on all, I have to say, and some of those were quite subclass resistant, or indeed firepower resistant, but overall it all worked out at the end. I quite like the idea of playing with other guys who were of similar ability. The matchmaking worked well. The other guys brought in, all of them, the vast majority, were on the same level as me. So that was awesome, because as you know, in some other games, if you have fewer players entering, then there's a difficulty where you have newbies being brought together with some hardcore veterans, and that sometimes does cause concerns, because the hardcore veterans are obviously a lot more knowledgeable and a lot full of skill, but also they know where to go, what to do, and therefore sometimes it appears that they race through the game. This was absolutely not the case here. Everyone I played with was obviously on the same level, regardless of the fact that people might have played it on the day before, or spent more time during the weekend on the gameplay. Everyone seemed very friendly and very helpful. We had lots of people doing buddy-buddy by resurrecting me after being killed, which was very good, even if I was literally left at some very, very remote spot. So the element of community was already very, very visible. I think people will be connecting, because you will not be able to play Anthem offline. It will have to be done as a multiplayer when you're connected to the internet, which is obviously pointing the direction to the multiplayer and the community. And also I think lots of things which could be learned, either you'll be able to get that from your journals and from the library, or you'll be able to get that knowledge from your friends, your community, and people who perhaps played Anthem for a little while longer and already had professed certain skills and acquired certain type of knowledge. So I think on the technical front, the game obviously faced lots of difficulties, and there were lots of complaints on Twitter about the fact that some people couldn't really get through the demo, or many people on Xbox couldn't really get in because there were some issues with the login screen and infinite loading screen, and various other bits and pieces which were literally emerging throughout the gameplay and through the whole weekend. It is obviously very sad and very disappointing that we had to be facing all of that, but I have to say the demo itself did not feel like an ordinary demo. The reason for that is it contains over 8 hours of gameplay, and that is just all related to Stronghold and story missions. If you were to be exploring various areas, you could literally spend many hours there looking at various valleys and canyons and all of that fantastic nature which is before you, and then looking for perhaps some creatures or new enemies, or indeed for certain items which you can then collect. So it felt very much like doing a beta test on a new game, and regrettably it didn't work out on the technical front. 3 major issues reported everywhere were, first of all, not being able to log in properly, so there were connectivity issues. Secondly, there was this infinite loading screen in between missions. This was very annoying because I obviously had streamed all of my tests, and each time where I faced this infinite loading screen, I had to be restarting both my stream, meaning I had to disconnect the broadcast, and then I had to be reloading a game in order to carry on. On Friday, that didn't work at all, and I had to do it many, many times. But then eventually, during the day, towards the late evening, the UK time, it began to work with reload. So if you were restarting the game, then you would get this option. You already have this mission waiting for you. Would you like to enter? And once you entered, then evidently you could just crack on and pursue it. So that resolved, well, just a part of the problem, because as a streamer I had to be every time disconnecting and restarting the broadcast, and that caused lots of headaches and lots of sort of dissatisfaction from the viewers and myself, because obviously it's a serious chore. The third problem which persisted was so-called rubber banding, and it was basically happening as your character faced a lot of lag, always in the multiplayer, and was not able to move from a certain position. So literally you would see this character going back and forth, either trying to jump in the air or trying to run, and then coming back to exactly the same position. So let's say if you're facing the enemy within the game, the enemy could see you as a character who was just simply standing, and then you were getting wasted straight away. That was regrettable. That was basically the major problem I had with my stream, and I couldn't really move around my character as much as I wanted, and sometimes it caused me unnecessary death. Sometimes I couldn't really get to a certain area, so that was a very, very big problem. It wasn't really reported as much I expected, and I wondered whether this is all to do with PlayStation 4 demoing, or maybe other people had less of that on PC and Xbox. But then at the end of the day, yes, one of the responses from their senior team leader who said that this was also widespread. Indeed, some people experienced it more than others, but you know, it was certainly interfering with the quality gameplay, and then also you had to be restarting the game in order to avoid it. And then the fourth problem was crashes. It was very annoying when we played that stronghold mission with the tyrant, swarm tyrant, you know, the beast that comes right at the end, and then quite a few times, probably about at least a dozen times, just before the tyrant was killed, the game crashed, and I was given that infinite loading screen, and I had to be restarting everything. Evidently, the mission then did not complete. I couldn't collect my score, and I was left all obviously with sour grapes and disappointed, and I had to restart the mission from the beginning. It helped me to understand the mission better, plan obviously in a different fashion, engage with other gamers, but still the sense of disappointment was there with me. So on balance, we are talking about an outstanding open world RPG shooter game, and we are talking about a game that we are likely to engage with for many, many years and months, as it appears to be vast, and also the producers indicated during their world premiere on Thursday that this game is in no time going to be also a cross-platform game, and that is phenomenal news. Everybody who will be able to access it on PC, Xbox or PlayStation then could join the same arena and play together. We know full well how difficult that is for us Destiny fans, where we have people coming in on Xbox and saying, can you jump in, and we on PlayStation 4 and we can't jump in, or you know, other people playing it on PC and then asking for those on Xbox to come in. And again, this is not enabled. We've seen with Fortnite, for instance, how successful this can be, and I'm certainly hoping that with Anthem it is going to be very, very similar. We'll have to see whether it works out on the competitive front, and also whether there's going to be the major annual pass introduced with various things like what we have in Destiny called Crucible, and it all remains to be seen. But it's still very early days. We're looking at the base game with its storyline and the dialogue and all the other elements of firefights and enemies, and all of that was really very, very formidable. So I'm very excited and very happy to have been able to test the VIP demo so early. Not happy about those technical problems, and indeed I'm sure that everyone at BioWare is very worried what this is likely to be next weekend, where everybody else is going to be able to come in. So the next weekend is going to be your open demo, basically free for everyone wherever you are, and that means you do not need to be on Xbox Live Gold or PlayStation Plus. It's going to be accessibility to everyone who downloaded it, and I'm certainly hoping that the servers are going to be able to cope with the pressure coming in. I think, in my experience, the problems we had were caused by the multiplayer, because let's say I've chosen a single mission, I tried to get in as obviously a single player, and then I was being brought into the multiplayer arena. I had no choice over that. I was just being brought in, and as soon as I was there with 3 other guys, then the rubber banding started, and it meant that the server was obviously struggling with the capacity, and this has been denied by the team leaders of BioWare. They said they had prepared all the servers and obviously additional facilities to be able to cope with the pressure, but I think they probably were also surprised by the sheer number of gamers coming in for the VIP demo, which was formidable. And as you know, the vast majority were either the purchasers or people who pre-ordered the game, combined with those who are members of EA Origins Premier Service. And I think also there were quite a few people who bought the code or were given this code through the friends, because everyone who pre-ordered was given the extra bit of reward by being able to invite 3 other friends to play together with them. So if you think about it, somebody pre-ordered and then they brought in 3 other friends and they made a team of 4, which obviously could compete with the enemies. Particularly during this VIP demo weekend, we were all then attacking that Swarm Tyrant, as this was obviously the major Stronghold mission. The Stronghold mission felt a bit like Destiny raids, but let's just make one thing absolutely plain and clear to everyone who's listening and to everyone who is considering whether to buy Anthem. The industry insiders were raising the issue that perhaps Anthem was going to be the BioWare's answer to Bungie's sci-fi biopic, and the fact is, Anthem does not feel at all like Destiny. It feels very much like a very different version of Mass Effect. When you get in, you'll be able to recognize certain elements which you had in Mass Effect Trilogy, and they're with you instantly. So if you played Mass Effect, you will be at home with most of the things which you face in Anthem. The world itself, visually and in terms of its atmosphere, feels completely different. So there's no similarity to Destiny whatsoever. Also, the fact that when you walk around, you have so many different characters who want to talk to you is significantly different, and it's very sort of close to core when it comes to the very best BioWare products in the past. As you remember, Mass Effect Trilogy and Neverwinter and Baldur's Gate and Dragon Age, of course, another game which we are certainly anticipating. One of the, I think it is the 4th installment to come out literally within the next couple of years. So you have a lot of dialogue, a lot of characters who want to talk to you, and of course you'll get to know a lot about the Anthem world from them, and you'll be allocated certain tasks which are going to be then completed once you pursue those missions. So that's significantly different. I guess the concept of being able to fight various missions, some of which are relatively easy and based on the story, and others like attacking strongholds, which can be repetitive, will require a lot of team effort, are similar to the concept of strikes and raids in Destiny, but the way they are developed is completely different. So I think for everyone who is a great Destiny fan, you'll find this other game which is going to have the concept perhaps to a degree similar, but looking, feeling and giving you everything which is consistently different. And that will be so rewarding, because in no time, I certainly can tell you as a Twitch streamer, I'll have the opportunity to be streaming 2 fabulous open world games. Both of those are sci-fi, but both of which are going to be inherently different. Very curious to see how the community is going to be building and how the teamwork of 4 is going to be literally evolving within the game. It's likely that we'll have squads and people who will buddy up and then, play together literally from the word go. And coming back to the weekend, the VIP demo then ended late last night, and I was particularly pleased to see that during the Sunday night, as the number of gamers had dropped, the servers began to work properly and I was able to engage the enemies better. I experienced fewer technical problems, so evidently it's all down to the number of gamers coming in and the capacity of the servers, or indeed maybe some other technical issues which are server or number of gamers related. So I was able last night after 10 o'clock UK time to play the demo with ease, without many difficulties being experienced. That was very encouraging. Obviously it was at the end of this weekend, and then very quickly the entire period ended, so I couldn't really engage with everything. And I really then looked forward to the next weekend where the open demo will resume. I think we are likely to be able to play it after midday Friday, so the schedule is going to be very, very similar to what we had in the course of the last weekend, and probably with many other people involved. So if you are in 2 minds whether to be purchasing the game or doing the demo or even doing anything Anthem related, I would absolutely urge you to do so. This game is likely to be almost like the next generation game, and I think lots of different goodies are still to come out of BioWare and Anthem, in addition to what we've seen so far. we are quite aware of the fact that we're keeping cards close to the chest. We don't know exactly what the story is like. We don't even know whether there are going to be some updates and some DLC content thrown in literally within the first week. But after watching the world premiere on IGN with two of the BioWare producers, and I should say Anthem producers as well, the feeling was that they will be pursuing the same concept which was introduced by Bungie on the annual pass, and they said the content is going to be continuously coming in, and they will enable cross-platform access as well, which is very, very advantageous, I think, when it comes to the number of community members. And we are then going to be expanding on both the missions and the enemies which we can face in this world. So all of that is to be looked forward to. And Sila Costa and everyone, Mark Dara, the director, and everyone else involved for producing a wonderful game. We have to be a bit more patient when dealing with technical issues. I know I got a bit erratic and unhappy during the weekend, particularly when I faced that rubber banding on dead spots, and I couldn't really evade those dead spots. I couldn't tell where they were, and then I couldn't really fly, I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything. But at the end of it all, I think the overall gameplay outweighed the technical issues, and as we know, their teams will work on those issues 24/7 in order to make them ready, first of all for the next weekend, and then most importantly for the 22nd of February when the game launches. So what's the verdict? The verdict is Anthem looks to me like 10 out of 10. So, and you may ask, why are you saying this 10 out of 10, but there were so many technical issues? Well, for major projects there always are going to be technical issues, and we have to be patient. The massive games like Fallout, like Destiny, like Anthem, Red Dead Redemption, they're massive, and once they're tested, they will provide a certain selection of results. But when they're facing the real world with real pressure, lots of different personalities coming in with the gameplay and doing different things, then obviously the game will feel very, very differently. And unfortunately, the technology is also responding to the gamer behavior, to the quantity of people coming in, and then we are obviously facing the difficulties which we had seen. So that has to be put aside, because make no mistake, if you purchase the Legion of Dawn edition, which is a top tier edition of Anthem, if you purchase the base game, once you're out there, maybe not on the first day, but certainly within the first week, you are going to be having plain sailing within the Anthem world. So, my dear friends, thank you so much for coming and for watching and for listening to my Anthem broadcast, Anthem review, I should say. My overall feeling and impression was that Anthem is a terrific game. I love BioWare, as you know. Mass Effect is one of my favorite games of all times. Mass Effect trilogy, I should say, and indeed I really look forward to Anthem evolving and pursuing that sort of direction. Perhaps not as a trilogy, maybe as a game which is not just an open world, but a game without an end that can just carry on and live in that Anthem universe. I guess similar to the idea that Bungie have introduced as well, and that certainly is what I would like to see the best. So, if you are interested in what I've been doing during the weekend, then you can have a look at some of my streams. I have to warn you, there are lots of technical issues in there, but you will get some ideas of what the game is like. On the other hand, if you head to Twitter, on Twitter I have posted already a number of videos which are basically my gameplay, and some of those are of those critical sections when we are trying to defeat the Swarm Tyrant, and also there are several when we are collecting echoes and trying to silence the relics. So they're separate missions. Echo missions and the silencing the relic are story based, and the other ones are based on the stronghold, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken, but I played the missions again and again and really enjoyed them tremendously. So principally I would advise you to download the demo and then attempt to play it on Friday when the entire process is going to resume. And as said, I really look forward to Anthem being released. I consider it to be one of the next generation games, and I thoroughly enjoyed my gameplay. Coming back to my Twitter, you have there some screenshots, you have some gameplay videos as well. They're currently being uploaded from through PlayStation server, so they may take a little while, but I think I've uploaded between half dozen and 10. So they are going to be giving you a very, very, very good focus on what you might be doing there if entering the demo, or indeed what Anthem as the full game is going to provide you with. So, well, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for watching the Anthem review. I will resume with my Destiny broadcast very, very shortly, and I hope that all of you will join me there as well. I wish you all a very, very good night, and I thank you very much for coming and for listening. for the benefit of everyone watching, just like to invite you all to my Destiny 1 broadcast. As you know, I'm a Destiny streamer, broadcaster. I broadcast Destiny 1 every day and sometimes also Destiny 2. So if you are a member of our community, or indeed if you are joining the new Anthem community, I would invite you to come in and have a look and talk to us and join us as well. We have lots of Destiny veterans in this forum. Loads of veterans come to this channel because they believe I'm holding out a beacon for everyone. I beg your pardon. We have some people here who are simply not able to read when you are accessing chat. It tells you exactly that offensive comments are prohibited. So one of those has just come in with something which is considered very offensive to myself and the rest of the viewers, and we do have mods that deal with this, and we report this to Twitch. So what happens is immediate action is taken, as you will see. I apologize to everyone for that. We do not tolerate anybody who is unfriendly and offensive to everyone. So the mods have dealt with that already. And just coming back to my earlier point about Destiny, we have lots of Destiny veterans coming in here every day and joining me in fire teams and cooperative team play. So if you are one of those new Anthem community members, perhaps you want to pop in, have a look and join us sometime. And indeed, I can assure you that lots of Destiny veterans will be also migrating to Anthem world once the game is out. So if you are one of those, please come in and have a look, join us, talk to us, tell us what you think, tell us about your experience of Anthem demo so far. We are obviously going to be holding together until Anthem is released, because guess what, we cannot be playing the game before the 22nd of February unless we also are members of EA Origins scheme, and therefore we are likely to be able to enter the Anthem world on the 15th of February. So if you're one of those, then obviously you'll have the priority and you'll be able to access it earlier than everyone else. I'm not sure whether I'm going to be one of those. We'll see, possibly. But you know, I'll keep you posted on that near the date. So one way or the other, on the 22nd for sure, we are going to be engaging with that beautiful new world. Xavier Man's here. Hello, how are you doing, sir? Good to see you here. Good to see you joining our community. EA working Anthem. Xavier Man says, absolutely, and not just EA, but also BioWare. Lots of complaints have gone down the EA/BioWare way during the weekend, and all of those were obviously related to those technical problems. They are working around the clock to resolve them. I have to say that towards the end of the night yesterday, there has been a significant improvement, and that's probably because a lot of the gamers had discontinued and they kind of went to bed, so there were fewer people at the end of the 3-day demoing, and therefore the servers were able to cope with the pressure, and therefore I was able to complete my missions and indeed engage with the stronghold attack, which then was actually running smoothly. There weren't any major difficulties compared to obviously early in the day and early in the weekend. But if you're wondering whether enough is being done, I can certainly assure you that the very top people at BioWare and also at Electronic Arts are doing everything possible to resolve the issues which were plaguing the demo release. And I guess everybody was particularly annoyed because this was not an open demo. That's basically the bottom line. When you are pre-ordering and you're paying £80 in the UK or $80 in the US for the brand new game, then you really want to be feeling a bit privileged if you are given that VIP access. And we absolutely did not feel privileged because, you could say we felt privileged that we were given a snippet of a wonderful new game, and once the gameplay was smooth, we could really love it and enjoy it. But this was just for very, very small periods of time. Therefore, there has been such a revolution, of a sort, really directed at the developer and the publisher. I think some of it is justified, but on the other hand, I also think everyone needs to be a bit more patient. This is a brand new game, and you know, the demo didn't go, you know, as planned, but we did get some clear idea of what this game is going to be like. Xavier Man says EA working on bugs. Well, absolutely, yeah. There's obviously this is a tremendous task, and I'm sure their entire team is now being brought in to resolve all the issues. What I would like to ask everybody who's watching is basically to provide BioWare, not Electronic Arts, BioWare, with your accurate feedback, and everything what you say will need to be, you know, crisp. Basically outline what you loved and tell them what you hated, and make it really short and crisp and understandable, and they will take it on board. It's very, very important to do that, because obviously everyone in BioWare was very, very disappointed that the demo had gone you know, down this route, and that nothing worked on Friday. They didn't expect this. They obviously had done everything possible to make sure that everyone could enjoy the game. We were given some rewards at the end for being the members of the VIP kind of testing club by, you know, first of all 4 Javelin suits being unlocked. So I'm not sure whether you were entering or playing the game later in the day yesterday, but we then, you know, were given access to all 4 Javelin suits, and that was very good, because this wasn't planned for the you know, the demo release. We were to use just 2 rather than 4, so that was quite good. And also they said that we are going to be getting some extra skins or some extra bits which can be equipped on our suits as a result as well. So, you know, that's nice, but I think BioWare and EA need to consider perhaps providing a bit more, because the technical issues were very considerable and they were plaguing us literally for 3 days on the go. So, you know, that's obviously of deep concern. And really, considering the fact that we had several games recently that suffered in the same fashion, I'd say on the technical front, this probably was one of the least successful demo releases in the recent history. But, you know, it's a massively game, and some problems were expected. I mean, I hope you guys... I just want to ask Xavier Man, did you play the demo, Xavier Man? Did you enjoy it? Did you manage to get in, and did you manage to complete some of the missions? What was the experience? Tell us. I mean, I'll be very, very interested to hear. And as said, I'm inviting everyone to forward your feedback to BioWare directly. They had started a thread on Reddit, which is directly examined by their team leaders. So I think contacting BioWare by email directly, and you can put Anthem VIP demo feedback, is one option, which is a very good one. You will be obviously responded to. And the other is doing this thread on Reddit. It's the official thread, which means that the team, you know, the public relations team will be looking into this, as well as the technical team, and they'll be all looking at all the ins and outs and the difficulties people experience. I have to say, I was a bit surprised that the rubber banding, which was the major problem for myself, was not widely reported. People were not reporting it, and EA picked up on that only yesterday. But I guess it may be because people were not even able to get in that far in the game. You know, they couldn't get into those missions, they couldn't get to the Stronghold mission, and therefore this was then not occurring. So I think there were other, perhaps more precious issues there to be resolved, like for instance being able to log in and to get in order to play the game, which were perhaps more prevalent. And you know, I'm definitely full of hope and belief that the technical team is going to resolve all these issues. If not before the next weekend, we are then likely to see at least some improvements, I'm hoping, and then certainly for the actual release date, which is 4 weeks away. I think that date should really be, I wouldn't say bug or glitch free, but the initial problems will almost certainly be resolved, because they were basically transpiring as so many gamers worldwide got in, and indeed the kind of gamer behavior and various other things which were observed through accessing servers were then obviously causing and nobody could predict that, and I think that has to be understood as well. I guess we're living in the world where everything is instantly accessible, and therefore people are not very patient. But I have to say that the difficulties which I faced during the 3 days were actually testing my patience, and I'm considered to be a very, very patient person. So, then obviously for somebody who's less patient, that indeed would have been a much greater difficulty. But I'd be quite happy to hear from people who actually played Anthem on PC or Xbox to provide me with feedback. I want to know what problems on the technical front you had, because the technical problems were really widespread and everyone was affected by them. I have not heard from a single gamer that he was technical problems free. I guess there's a possibility that the guys doing the world premiere on Thursday night had no technical issues, but you know, this was just for 3 or 4 people doing the gaming, and they were from BioWare and they were doing it on IGN Live. What we had was hundreds of thousands of people worldwide entering at the same moment. Do you know that I've seen 18,000 complaints lodged? 18,000 complaints lodged to the EA help section. So that's staggering. And obviously everyone complained. And you should, because at the end of the day, this is the way to move things forward. And you can also ask for some goodwill gesture, for compensation. I would really like to ask people not to be cancelling the orders. That certainly would be a wrong course of action. Remember, this is a tremendous game, and what we've seen there once the tech issues were resolved was astonishing. I don't remember doing either demoing or trying out the game in the past which was as enjoyable and as immersive. So that's what you're going to get when you buy the game, when you pre-order, when you make sure that your pre-order can be preloaded, and then literally from the word go you can crack on. So don't cancel your orders, but do complain. That's the bottom line, and voice your concerns and write to BioWare and explain what the difficulties were. They need to know, even if you consider some of those to be completely insignificant, and if you didn't have many issues, do write, because every single one of those issues is going to be looked at, and it needs to be resolved before the game is launched. We do not want to see the game being launched and then plagued by so many different problems. That is something that nobody wants to see. On the other hand, I want to ask everyone, did you like the game visually? What did you think of the graphics? What did you think of the atmosphere? What did you think of the music? Wasn't that wonderful? Wasn't that as immersive? Perhaps even more than expected. I have to say I'm really staggered by the number of people that came in to watch my review. My channel is usually broadcast on 20 different platforms, and as soon as we started, there was so many people coming in from everywhere. So thank you for that, and I hope you enjoyed some of the things I said, and I hope you also enjoyed interactivity with other community members, because Anthem is a new community, and I think it is likely that the Anthem community will basically bring in those people who love BioWare, and particularly people who are in love with Mass Effect Trilogy. And as you know, there are many people worldwide still playing the trilogy and also streaming it on Twitch, and obviously those who are playing Destiny being the brainchild of Bungie, another game developer. And the games are similar in the aura and perhaps to a degree in the concept, but when it comes to the way they are construed and the way they operate, they're completely different. And I'm so glad, because there were so many people asking, is this game just like Destiny? Is this a copycat? Is this a rip-off? Is this something that they're trying to, are they trying to compete with Bungie? The answer is absolutely no. The game is completely different, and the aura, the atmosphere, similarity with other games like Titanfall due to those suits, and also with Warmind. So you have quite a selection of games that could be considered to be of influence, and I just really liked everything about it, to be honest with you. I love games which are providing us with a lot of RPG content where we can be talking to lots of characters and pursuing certain choices and decisions. I love the way that we can go in the open. I mean, we can go into the wild and explore that open world, and we are always facing some challenges in there. The open world is, you know, not just like fast strolling. There's always something going on out there, and that I find quite exciting. In fact, on Saturday night, I was brought into a mission which I was doing as a single player, and then I didn't want to do the mission. I just wanted to explore the environment, and that was great. The only trouble there was that I faced lots of enemies which could not be killed, and vice versa. They couldn't kill me either. This was another bug, and I've gone to the areas which I believe the players were not expected to go to, because they were not a part of that mission which I was playing at the time. But nevertheless, I want to see for myself, you know, what's hiding in a cave, what's in a pond, what's up top of the hill. Let's just fly around a bit. Let's go to the other area and explore some of the enemies which might be there. Let's collect some you know, bits of kit. Let's get some coins. Let's do some harvesting. Let's you know. And that worked out really well. I really liked it. And I guess you could probably say that Anthem on the outset is giving us a flavor of a game which is a combination of all of those previous BioWare games. I can see some elements of Dragon Age in it as well, although not in its visuals, obviously. And I can see some similarities, or you could say, you know, great similarity with Mass Effect. And there's some elements of Neverwinter, and that would be purely in terms of its story structure. So, you know, all these elements are really, really interesting, and I just can't wait to crack on with the second weekend, hoping that the bugs are going to be resolved. And obviously I'm hoping to try those other two Javelin suits, because I've tried them in Ranger and Storm. The other two I've not touched at all. I've seen some Colossuses yesterday. They were defending me and protecting me, and they looked awesome and very mighty. They were very mighty when it came to you know, dealing with the enemy, compared to my Storm, which I think was very mobile, but to a degree vulnerable in terms of incoming fire. That was just the flavour I've had, and you know, remains to be seen. We need to obviously play on more, and I also really look forward to building various teams. You know, doing it not just with friends, but people who are Destiny veterans and people coming from the Mass Effect universe and engaging with those Javelin suits. So all of that is looking very, very exciting. So what did you guys think? Anyone amongst the people watching and listening had played the demo during the weekend? What was your experience? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was similar to Mass Effect, or perhaps you found it, you know, resembling some other game? Let us know. We are all here waiting to get your responses, to get some of your questions and some of your views. And you know what? BioWare are also waiting for that. People at BioWare are very, very keen on hearing all the feedback. Obviously, they would want the feedback to be exclusively game-related, but we cannot really extract the technical problems from that either. I'd like people to provide them with thoughts and views on the experience of gameplay. Even if you had just tiny little snippets of it, still tell them what you felt. That's the idea. And I'm certain that BioWare are going to provide us with something a little bit of extra, in view of the fact that we had sort of battled hard with those technical issues throughout the weekend. You know, we really did battle hard, and there was nothing more frustrating than myself coming to the end section of Swarm attack, or the Swarm Tyrant attack, and then I'm getting stuck in one position. I get rubber banded, and guess what? The Swarm Tyrant and the other guys, the other enemies, just target me and kill me, and therefore I have to be respawned. You realize if you play the demo, you can't respawn by yourself. If you have multiplayer in there, one of the other characters has to respawn you. So in fact, it's very similar to the Nightfall strikes in Destiny. The concept, I mean, not the actual gameplay. And you know, that was very frustrating. And then yesterday, when the game actually worked and the technical issues were resolved, I had a serious problem with the game crashing right at the point where we were destroying the Swarm Tyrant. So I was about to really get all the experience points and collect some loot, and then the game crashed and I got nothing. In fact, I did play one mission where we completed it, we killed the Swamp Tyrant, and then when we had the the slide coming up on the screen with all the scores, the game crashed. So these were the disappointing elements of our gameplay during the weekend. And I guess also I had slight concerns that the developer called this demo VIP. I personally thought that the VIP demo was going to be significantly different in content compared to the one offered to the general public on the following weekend. But it appeared to be that the VIP element was just purely to do with the actual early access. So it is my understanding that the demo next weekend is going to be exactly the same. But you know what? This may not be completely correct, because what has been advertised and related to the VIP demo already prior to the weekend was that we are going to be able to use just 2 Javelin suits, right? But then because of the technical problems, the developer unlocked the other suits as well. So in fact, if you look at it, the VIP demo yesterday already had some extras thrown in, and it's possible that the open demo will have even some more goodies given. So it's definitely worthwhile checking on BioWare Twitter and EA help forums to see whether such niceties are going to be provided for us. I certainly hope they will. They will be obviously well received and appreciated by everyone. And so we are just likely to be waiting to see whatever comes our way next week. I just hope that the demo next week is going to be providing us with some extra sections as well. So for anyone who was there for those 3 days over this weekend and attempted to combat all the glitches and technical problems, will there be having some extra rewards on the next weekend, and therefore will make it like a really nice, interesting, complete 6 days of testing the demo. I know that not everybody wants to do that, but at the same time I think it is going to be very beneficial, because we are then mastering some skills, we are getting some clear ideas on how to control the character, and all of that can be applied to the game once released. Do remember that everything that you completed during the weekend is going to be fully saved, and you'll be able to use that on the next weekend. So the saves are entirely for the demo gameplay, which means you will not be, and I want to stress that, you will not be able to use those saves for the base game once it comes out on the 22nd of February, right? So it's very important to understand, so people could complain that this wasn't possible, that the saves and the achievements acquired for the demo are for the demo exclusively. None of them can be carried forward to the game once it's released. And the demo indeed may well look, feel, and have content which is significantly different to what you get in the game. It's basically a taster which is testing our ability to engage with those characters, to control them, to basically enter firefights, and also it is it's a test for the company to see whether everything works. Regrettably, we've seen during this weekend that hardly anything worked, but we have faith that this will be resolved, and surely after looking at the stats and the tech problems, they'll be able to identify the key areas and then tackle them as they go along. So is there anyone out there who has been doing the demo during the weekend? If so, please send us a message here, tell us what you felt, how you found it, whether you enjoyed it, whether you hated it, whether you were just completely going insane because the rubber banding or lagging was affecting your gameplay, or whether you were able to crack on and then kill some of those enemies and have another Javelin suit on. Have you tried all 4 Javelin suits? That's the question I'd also like to have answered. I tried only 2 and they were pretty good, but having 4 of them, well, that would be something. I know it's tedious to be looking at this menu screen telling that we have this connection problem, but I can't really throw in anything else because that's just about the only thing that will work, and we still have to wait until the next weekend, and then, you know, once we get to the 22nd of February, we'll be able to do everything which would give us obviously any section of the game, and then what we'll see on our screens is going to be a lot more exciting just compared to just watching the menu. So, to conclude, I mean, really, I had left a bit more time at the end of the broadcast for some feedback, to hear from people what they thought and felt about the demo during the weekend, and the formal review was already finished early on, and you've seen also my postings that indeed the review would have ended. But I thought if anybody wanted to discuss anything, if you had any questions, ideas, concerns, anything related to your weekend experience, it'd be very, very good for me to hear, because I can obviously forward it directly to BioWare, and then this could be looked at. My own response to BioWare already has gone in. I expressed obviously my appreciation and excitement about the game, its gameplay and all the goodies I experienced, but also I did write my concerns related to the technical issues and all the problems which are persisting. I have to say the technical problems were affecting the streamers probably more than everyone else, because if you were streaming the demo, then every single time where you had this infinite loading screen, or when the game crashed, you had to be both ending your broadcast and reloading the game, and that caused many problems. I had altogether, I think, about 20 different broadcasts, or maybe 25 during the weekend, because every single time there was a major block, I kind of allowed it to be there for a while and then had to restart. And in addition to that, I had probably about 60 these kind of infinite loading screens, which were not kind of non-stream, you know, whilst I was not actively streaming, or even more than that, because I was testing it also purely on the server, and all of that was also causing major concerns and major worries. And for me, the most frustrating thing was rubber banding. You know, when you have the character going backwards and forwards, and actually he's just standing in one place and you can't really moving around. That was absolutely maddening. I really had a problem with that. That was happening all the time, almost on every single mission. Before I came to the end of Sunday, anytime I was dropped in, I would have the problem with that. You know, I couldn't go anywhere, just literally being brought back to the same place. And it did happen a few times in firefights as well. I'd be then obviously singled out by the enemy, and they'd kill me straight away. Jeff's here. Hello Jeff, how are you doing? Good to see you. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for participating in our feedback here on my Anthem VIP demo review. Jeff is asking, will game-breaking bugs be fixed by launch? Seems unlikely. Well, you know, I've been reading the responses coming from Casey Hudson and from Mr. Robertson and various other people in there, and they were very, very disappointed that the problems were so many, and they were also very heartened by the number of responses that came their way. Lots of responses were really polite, you know, there obviously some abusive coming in, but they were very, very concerned that such multitude of glitches could make people cancel the orders. And if you looked on Twitter, that's the Anthem Game official Twitter, you would have seen that there were many messages indicating that those gamers are going to be cancelling the orders. This may be just a threat, you know, because everybody wants to be exploring the Anthem world once the game comes out. But coming back to your question, I think that the basic issues which we experienced yesterday are very likely to be resolved by the time we get to the date, the 22nd of February. But there may well be additional glitches and bugs. You know, this is a very, very vast game, and it is very, very complex. It has many, many different characters, and it really combines all of that with the multiplayer. And where the game cracked was on the multiplayer. Every single time when I tried to play a single mission, I was being thrown in to the multiplayer, and then sometimes when I wanted to do the multiplayer, I was being given a single mission. It just didn't work. There was some sort of problem with the way the game worked on the multiplayer, and as you know, BioWare are not, unlike Bungie obviously, they are not the top developer for multiplayer games. This is a major experiment, a major investment, and there is a question whether it is all going to work, but I'm quite certain that they'll do everything possible to remedy it. So if you order the game, or if you obviously pre-ordered and bought it, I'm sure you will not be disappointed at the end. The content will be there, and plenty to be enjoyed, certainly. But that rubber banding has to be resolved, and I wondered really whether it was happening literally on all platforms, or whether it was just PlayStation 4 related, or maybe even if it was Twitch related. Expert, I wouldn't know anything about it, but I did notice that on Sunday, as from 6 o'clock PM UK time, when I tried to stream, I was getting rubber banding all the same, and if I was trying to play the game off stream, then I was getting a lot less of it. I was still getting it. I couldn't get rid of it. It wasn't like rubber banding just disappeared if you weren't doing your streams, but actually it was there. And I hate that lag. I really do, because obviously you can't move ahead in game, you can't be strolling through certain areas, and the biggest problem is if you're in a firefight and you hit the dead spot, you're dead. The enemies are just hitting at you and you're dead. You can't get away, because you can see that you're trying to move yourself, but the enemy can see that you're just standing, you're not doing anything. And I have to say, whilst doing the multiplayer yesterday, quite a few other fireteam members, they had moments where they were just like literally remotely standing. They weren't going anywhere, and that's the reason, because when I watch them, I can see that they're standing, they're not going anywhere, but actually they are experiencing the same rubber banding as myself when trying to move the character, so they can see that rubber banding is occurring, but when we are looking at it, as a third person looking at some of the other fighting members, we can see that they're not going anywhere. So, well, that's the trouble. Well, that Fallout 76, they had a disastrous launch and many glitches and problems on Fallout 76. Eventually they're getting resolved, and I can tell you from some of our Destiny veterans also, playing Fallout 76, they're very happy with the game, and they find it to be, well researched and well composed with good story and everything else. But certainly during the initial period, the glitches were so great that people lost patience, and you had characters walking around kind of bare naked, you had certain things not working out at all, various characters having wrong skins, and all sorts really. But on the other hand, they're really ambitious. If I'm not mistaken, they were running the beta test quite close to the launch, and that's always a bit of a risk. Perhaps it's better to allow a lot more time and then come in, You'll see that those developers that are allowing a lot more time, they have fewer technical problems. Difficult to tell. But I actually waited for quite a few years to see excuse me, a major game of this magnitude, a blockbuster that will have the aura of Destiny, but with the concepts which I absolutely adored and admired in Mass Effect trilogy. Anyone who loves RPG will tell you it's just one of the best possible RPGs ever made. Mass Effect 2, that is. That's the best out of 3. I mean, I love all of them, but I think Mass Effect 2 really excelled in particular. And this game certainly feels like Mass Effect on the demo. When you start with your aiming, it looks very similar to the weaponry you use in Mass Effect. The other thing is your menu is identical. You have your library, and you can learn from the library about all the characters and all the enemies and everything in that environment. It's very, very useful. And I think people who like Oblivion, Skyrim and Elder Scrolls Online, they always like library. There's lots of information there, and as you are progressing or pursuing certain missions, then you get all that knowledge, and the knowledge really helps. What I find sometimes difficult in Destiny, which is obviously not related to Anthem, is the absence of that. And the story is very complex, with lots of different characters and enemies and hostilities arising from the universe. And I had a difficulty in picking up on who was doing what while I was doing my first character, I think the story in here is likely to be more linear, and the very base of the story will be always easily understood. And also you have the the library which you could resort to. So if you are a bit uncertain about something, you just go to the library, have a look, and there is an explanation, everything is well recorded. The story is well recorded. Wherever you're going, everything you completed is recorded. You can see it straight away. I mean, this is what for me is absent in Destiny, but I love Destiny. It has other highlights and, you know, other virtues and qualities which obviously we all have been enjoying now for a number of years. And I just hope you guys will, obviously, if you are, let's say, you're hardcore Mass Effect trilogy fans, I hope you will come to Anthem. And also, if you come to this channel, I hope you come to Destiny. So you will have 3 incredible games, you know, literally on your desk, and you can simply then come back to any of those anytime you want. You can play Anthem for months, and then you can switch to Destiny, play it for months. And I have to say that considering the number of Destiny veterans that come here, and the number of great sort of firefights we've had, you always feel when you come back to the game after you've not played it for a little while, like you're coming back home. You know, you come back to your own turf, and all of your friends are always there. They always come in, and you can always talk to them. They can always tell you what they've been doing in the meantime, and you can always rejoin. So I certainly hope that this is the atmosphere that we are going to have in Anthem as well. The atmosphere of help and bonding and friendliness, you know. I have to say that my first experience of the demo was that it did have a somewhat more competitive streak than Mass Effect. And that's obviously because you are there with 3 guys, but they're fighting together. It just seemed more difficult. It seems a bit more difficult when tackling the enemies. Some of the enemies were very difficult to kill. Maybe because I wasn't properly leveled up, or maybe it's to do with the weaponry I had. But, you know, it's a demo at the end of the day, but it seemed good. The enemies attacking me in that stronghold mission right at the beginning, there were probably about 3 different types. One was quite easy to kill, the second one was kind of medium, and the third lot were really hard. And easier to kill if, obviously, let's say you were hitting them with your subclass, and the other buddy was hitting them with automatic weapons, so that really helped, you know. But Jeff is asking, if sales are weak, will EA end support like Andromeda? It's a good question, sir. It's a good question, sir. I actually today discussed this with some people, because I had some news yesterday coming from Sony indicating that to the first week of February, Sony PlayStation will discontinue support for PlayStation 3 and some other platforms. I can't remember exactly which ones. And there'll be no more any goodies coming to anyone who is, you know, a proud owner of PlayStation 3, because PlayStation Plus is going to be only used by PS4 members, and therefore PlayStation 4 will have a few more free games and all this. Well, it is monetary, you know, it is based on sales, and maybe not as much on sales as with the overall usage of certain service. So coming back to your question, if sales are weak, will EA end support like Andromeda? There always is a possibility, because if a game is not played and there aren't many people coming in, it means that the multiple revenue streams which are attached to these kinds of transactions today will be greatly affected, and therefore they'll have no means of doing it and supporting it. But I'm personally certainly hoping that this is not going to happen with Anthem. With Mass Effect Andromeda, they've taken a huge risk by bringing in another team to work on the game, and they changed quite a few teams compared to the trilogy, which seriously backfired. And, you know, it's always like that when you are dedicated to a certain game. Like, for instance, we are dedicated to Destiny, and people love Destiny 1. You know, it's a monumental game, really, and the number of people that are still playing it today and the community, you know, it's just vast. So obviously, if Bungie were going to be changing course a bit with Destiny 2, this was going to be received with hostility. And that's exactly what happened with Andromeda. Obviously, there were other problems in there, but so I certainly hope that with Anthem this is not going to be the case, and also I hope that Anthem is not going to be a part of a franchise. you know, like 2 or 3 installments or anything like that. I hope that Anthem is going to be like Destiny, but with a massive season pass, with all the new content coming in, and it will make it much more together. Because if you have one game and one never-ending infinite season pass, then people are always going to be coming in and engaging with the game. The only trouble there is the concerns about the cost. I know lots of younger people and younger gamers have come to this channel saying, I'm not spending £60 on the digital deluxe edition, I'm not spending $30–40 on the annual pass because this is too expensive and all that. At the end of the day, it will depend on the content. I think if somebody pays $40 for the annual pass, then they will want content to be obviously backing up the value which they believe they are right to invest, and that's just always an open question. Personally, I feel that the annual pass system is definitely geared for the future of gaming. That's the future, and if BioWare are to be experimenting with that for the first time in a major fashion, there may be some benefits and there may be some, rewards. I personally would like to see it that way, but on the other hand, one wonders whether this could be workable on the technical front. I don't know how this works on the technical front, but the complexities of RPG element combined with the multiplayer and all that, there may be some issues. I hope not. I think generally the DLC content should be made accessible, and it's always the best if we can get it within the season pass rather than need to purchase it section by section. And you will remember, if you're also a Destiny veteran, Jeff, that everybody was completely in awe of the Taken King download, because the Taken King download apparently completely changed the game and brought it a different aura, and people really suddenly falling in love with everything they saw. The storyline changed and everything seemed and felt different. So, it remains to be seen. I think like any project which is evolving or in development, we have to be patient. But I always say to everyone, if you are testing the project, if you are involved in beta testing, demoing, early participation, spare 30 minutes of your time and write emails to the correct source at the development company and tell them what you think. Make it crisp and clear and concise. Don't waffle for too long. Don't write Bibles and that sort of thing. But bring out in the open the points which are obviously pros and cons, and the developer will be grateful. BioWare, together with Bungie, are some of those developing companies that really pay attention to their community, and they are responsive. I can tell you that anytime I write to them, I always get really good responses and never ever feel ignored. And I think that's the bottom line. That's very, very important. And I hope that you guys are doing this. But just remember, if you are very unhappy about selection of technical issues or some problems, then make sure that your response is polite, concise, crisp, and articulate. Don't be offensive and don't come in with things which are perhaps made up or not true to fact. Come up with a selection of facts, make 3 or 4 bullet points, and make sure they're heard. And ask for rewards. If you invested, if you pre-ordered a game and the game didn't work or there are major problems in there, you have to ask for some form of compensation. Don't ask just for cancellation, your full money back. That's nonsense, If the other party is trying to obviously make amends and trying to help, then engage and try to get the best possible from them, because it is obviously of their interest to be keeping you on board and having you as one of those dedicated, valued members of the community. I think the general sense of impatience is something which is present everywhere today, and also present in video gaming industry, and I have a problem with that. I think there are certain things which have got to be placed within a wider scheme of things. One has to understand that not everything can be resolved just by one text message, and also that if one is responding to hundreds of thousands of messages, the responses can't be immediate. This is just the very basics of the way things are. But receiving personalized messages from the other party is something which does make everyone's life easier. What I do detest is when I'm writing to a company and I'm just getting robotic, impersonal, default messages sent by the server, and there's nothing of any form of acknowledgement that would indicate that somebody is actually looking at my concerns out there. I do have a problem with that, and some companies operate that, and I can tell you they are then not ranking very highly with the consumers. There has to be a degree of personalized response, and if that's absent, then everything else is completely futile. And you will know from various internet forums that people who are writing to the game development companies and receiving these kinds of messages will never ever purchase another game from that game developer. BioWare, Bungie, Bethesda are not these kinds of developers. They are absolutely in sync with their communities. Sometimes, depending on the volume of incoming messages, it takes them a bit of time to respond, but you will always get something from them if indeed your messages or postings are raising relevant concerns. So all of those are very, very important. Alright, so actually we've come... Oh, Jeff's here, last question. Anthem game size at launch. Well, it is likely to be more than 100 gigabytes for consoles. Probably even in excess of that. Massive. Absolutely massive. Because obviously what we heard so far was about 29 gigs for consoles and about 42 gigs for PCs. 42 gigs for PCs just for demo is very, very large. But obviously this was not an ordinary demo. It did contain up to 8 hours of the actual gameplay, which was kind of story missions stroke stronghold based, so it's much more than just an ordinary demo. And remains to be seen whether the files have to be compressed, or I'm not an expert on the technical front, but I guess for every single console owner, particularly the people who are playing quite a few games, this is always a major concern. I'll give an example. On my PlayStation at the moment, which is a top-notch brand new PlayStation console, PlayStation 4 console, I have Destiny 1, Destiny 2 and Elder Scrolls Online, and literally that's occupying all the space. There's no space for anything else, and therefore I have to be using the external hard drives. Presently there still is a problem because the games, they come in this massive big size, and in fact it does remind me of the old days of PCs. If you probably if you may recall those days where you had Take-Two games coming out with 6, 8, 10 different CDs. It's a similar sort of problem now with these massive big games, but I think in due course the space shortage will be resolved. They'll find another method through which the size is going to be managed. So we have to wait and see. I really have a problem with 3 games occupying the entire console. But then on the other hand, I do not have a problem with the fact that they're instantly accessible online. You have your digital account on server, and you are able to access them at any time, wherever you are. In fact, that's preferable to the discs, isn't it? If you travel worldwide, you have your console with you, you can access the game wherever you are. And you can obviously, like with Anthem and Destiny or Elder Scrolls, you can just enter the multiplayer arena, you engage with all of your friends around the world. Very different to the old days where you had to carry everything with you, I think the industry is literally moving into this entirely on the server direction. I'm not sure whether you've heard the industry announcements, but both the PlayStation and Microsoft are intending to launch consoles in the course of either this year or within the next 24 months, which are going to be just digital, so they'll have no physical drives, and that seems to be the preference. Whether that is going to work, because just consider, if you have to be keeping all of that information from every single console on the server rather than the console, one will require a lot of space. But that's certainly the direction that the industry is pursuing at the moment. So to come back to your question, I would say the game size is likely to be around 120 gigs That's just my estimate. I know that Destiny and Elder Scrolls also within that kind of region, but Anthem, considering its quality graphics and all the other things which I've seen, I like it to be really exceeding, you know, that by far. So, alright, my friends, we've had our feedback on Anthem. I had received some concerns and some views in here. I will be running a daily Anthem review with feedback, Q&A, and you name it. So if anybody is interested, you can come in on any day of the week, obviously prior to Friday. Maybe we'll have one on Friday as well, Friday early, before the new demo access is enabled. And you know, we are going to be able to discuss ins and outs, and I think this is going to be very, very useful to BioWare. So I will do postings on Twitter, inviting people to come in, and then we can, you know, discuss everything openly. And if need be, I can bring in several people on the party. We can discuss them on air. So if Casey Hudson or, you know, Mark Dara or one of the guys, Sila Costa from BioWare, want to hear what people have to say in real time, it'll be recorded and obviously left on Twitch and YouTube. We can run these forums, and, you know, instantly accessible for them, and they can hear everyone's voice, which obviously is always going to be useful. And Radical Gaming's here. Hello, how are you doing? Good to see you. Thanks very much for coming and watching my broadcast, also being here with us on my channel. Radical Gaming is asking, did you get crashes? Indeed, sir, I did get crashes, and I did get very many of those. And they were particularly annoying, and they were happening quite a lot yesterday on Sunday, I have to say. They were particularly annoying where crashes were happening towards the end of your mission. I mentioned earlier, if you were, you know, with us in the broadcast, that I was playing the Stronghold mission probably the most times, and this is the mission when you have to come to the final stage where there's this swarm tyrant. This is like a massive big insect which you need to kill, and he's like really, really powerful. And I got to that level quite a few times, and just before the swarm tyrant was killed, there was a crash, which means I was literally kicked out. And what did I get? I got that infinite loading screen, you know. So not just that I was being kicked out of the arena where we were destroying the, you know, the boss, I had to be then restarting the broadcast and restarting the game. So two things at once, and it's very, very annoying. Radical Gaming says he got like 20 plus crashes. With me, it was, I'd say, quite a few more than 20. I wouldn't like to actually specify the exact number, because obviously I was doing the streams in 3 days on a trot, literally. You're talking about very many crashes. Three major problems were rubber banding, right? Rubber banding was happening at all times, even on Sunday night, and that was literally spoiling the gameplay and causing problems with firefights. Secondly, there was infinite loading screen. That was the problem which persisted on all platforms, and it was persisting literally on all 3 days. And what was the third problem? Crashes. Crashes were the most common third problem, also present on all 3 platforms. I think some problems were platform specific, and I've seen some of those being written on various online forums, but at the end of the day, I focused on those which were applicable to everyone. And don't forget, Sila Costa, the Anthem producer, he said that this game is going to be made cross-platform. Cross-platform, not literally on its launch date, but very, very soon after that. Radical Gaming says, what's your thoughts on microtransactions when they come from it being EA? Well, I'm always in two minds about microtransactions. They could be obviously detrimental to the game and detrimental to the gamers, but they were confirming during the weekend. If you look up on EA Anthem help forum, they have a special thread in there just dedicated to Anthem. They were indicating that microtransactions are likely to be just cosmetic, and I guess, similar to what we have in Destiny. You know, people bought and acquire lots of different things, but they do not have any major game impact. So I hope that is the way it is going to be. And I'm hoping that there are going to be no transactions that could actually affect the gameplay and, you know, generally whatever we are to do in the Anthem world. I think it's always the best, isn't it? You have it optional. If people want to be wearing funny masks or, you know, wearing different kinds of bits and pieces, they can obviously get that, but that shouldn't be affecting the actual gameplay and the ability to progress forward. I think that's where the bottom line is for me. And I played lots of games, well, on either end, you know, the games where you have absolutely no impact if you're pursuing microtransactions, and also if you have. So my preference is always for that to be left optional. Radical Gaming is asking, demo is final build, you think launch will be the same? I think the launch is likely to be having some technical issues. What's been experienced in the weekend is, you know, phenomenally big in terms of the problems, and they, you know, I've never seen any other demo having that kind of magnitude of difficulty, and I personally think that they will do everything possible to resolve some of those if possible, even before the next weekend. But it is likely that as the game is launched, there are some issues to be had, you know. What these issues will be, possibly the infinite loading screen. Yesterday they had quite a lengthy response from several senior team members at BioWare, and they said the infinite loading screen is probably the most difficult for them to resolve. They didn't anticipate it, and they said it wasn't really server based, it was more to do with the behavior of the players and the quantity of the players in the arena. So hard to tell, but they said that that's likely to be the biggest problem for them that has to be resolved. And possibly, you know, there is obviously a chance that it may not be resolved by that date. On the other hand, if you're looking at it, if the restarting the game will resolve it immediately, this is going to be alright to a degree initially for the gamers, but this is absolutely not going to be alright for the Twitch streamers, because every single time you get that infinite loading screen, you have to be literally ending a broadcast, reloading. It's not workable. Radical Gaming says, well, if they don't do what they did in Battlefield 2 and P2, yeah, well, I'm hoping that they will not do anything like that. But just like you said, I think somebody else said it earlier on the feedback, they're concerned that if the sales of the game initially are not particularly pertinent, that then EA may be introducing, you know, that, and that perhaps the support for the game would be then discontinued early. These are all speculations, we can't really predict it. I think, considering the magnitude, the scope, the vastness of the Anthem world and everything that it brings us, there are all kinds of possibilities. You know, this is probably the biggest, the most complex game that the studio ever produced, and you know, we have to see, really, played by ear. But if I was, for instance, one of the guys there, you know, one of the top managers of BioWare, I would make sure that everybody who was testing the demo this weekend, and maybe, you know, people coming in next weekend, if they're experiencing these difficulties, would be given something. So some sort of reward. Could be something as simple as a wallpaper, you know, a nice wallpaper which is perhaps not purchasable elsewhere, and you get it privately, because everyone obviously is logged in there with a user ID, and, you know, something like that, some sort of gesture of goodwill, something which will remedy the problems, and that will be always appreciated. You know, it doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be anything massive. Completely wrong for people to be just cancelling the orders, because the game is going to be massive, certain. Radical Gaming says the game will be a huge success if they don't bring pay to win. Absolutely. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Because at the end of the day, pay to win is off-putting to 99% of the gamers. We know that, and it's just not acceptable. And Radical Gaming says, I was kind of hesitant to pre-order, I didn't want to be ripped off. You know what, I think if you're considering just Electronic Arts, obviously there may be some questions raised, but if you're looking at BioWare, just consider the quality gaming they produced in the last 20 years. Think about everything from, you know, Baldur's Gate onwards. Think about the quality, the dedication, the formidable content which everyone was able to enjoy. You will not be ripped off, you know. I think if you are considering whether to purchase the Legion of Dawn edition, which is the top tier edition currently offered on Anthem, you will not be disappointed. And don't forget, if you purchase the most expensive product, you will be given something else in addition if things backfire, either as a DLC or as an add-on, you know. So I would say my faith absolutely is in BioWare. Andromeda was a flop, and Radical Gaming says. Yes, it was. They, instead of continuing with the same team, you know, engaged with another lot, and they also changed the system of gameplay and various other bits which were very, very popular amongst the dedicated Mass Effect gamers within a trilogy, and that itself backfired, just the concept, let alone all other issues which were, you know, coming together with it. But on the other hand, if you look at it from the executive's point of view, or from the studio's point of view, they had engaged the idea of Anthem already at the beginning of this decade. So we are talking probably about 9 years so far. The actual main production, or the first concept art, was produced in 2012, right? So we are talking about the focus shifting from Mass Effect trilogy onto the new saga being Anthem, you know? And that, I think, is probably the main reason for flop on Andromeda. I think it is really troubling because everyone really looked forward to Andromeda, and everyone who loved Mass Effect trilogy was so greatly disappointed. But if a different studio does the game, well, you know it all. It's a huge risk. Could be all sorts. Radical Gaming says BioWare being pushed too hard by Electronic Arts, and Radical Gaming says they had a huge stock loss because of Star Wars Battlefront 2. Yes, that's right. The Battlefront 2 faced huge amount of complaints initially, and you know, simply things didn't work out. But you know, it's really, how do I put it? Electronic Arts as a publisher faces huge liabilities and challenges in the industry, and they're also trying to kind of construe systems which will work if, for instance, they have a major loss on a game or major problem with the marketing budget or something else. But because the industry is so fast-paced and fast-moving, there isn't enough time to be considering many different options, you know, and therefore when you take these fast decisions, then some of them do not work. And unfortunately, I think therefore the studio suffers, and indeed the publisher suffers. I think in this kind of very competitive market out there, it's very, very hard to survive if you're coming up with methods which are not popular. Just think about the community today, you know, community of Halo, community of Destiny, community of Elder Scrolls, community of Dragon Age, community of Mass Effect. I'm just, you know, kind of talking from the top of my head, throwing in games which I really love. These communities are very powerful. You talk about millions of people worldwide, and their voices are heard on Twitter, Facebook, Twitter in particular, in fact, because obviously this is a direct communication to the, you know, anyone concerned. And once they're lost, they're lost. Radical Gaming is saying EA will be always trying to monetize hard. It's very likely. Radical Gaming is asking, what other games do you stream? Did you get Resident Evil 2 Remake? Presently, I have not pre-ordered Resident Evil 2 Remake. I've not purchased it yet, but I indeed will be. And as you probably would have seen, the channel has been almost solely dedicated to Destiny. But I did stream other games as well, and Destiny has been the backbone of this channel from the beginning. Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. I streamed the Elder Scrolls Online. I had a week which was dedicated to PlayStation Now services, so I did extract a few from there. Some golden oldies, Grim Fandango and Primal, and then some more recent games such as Call of Duty and Bloodborne. and I also streamed and played Hard Rain. So you know, so like a variety. Generally, I'm focused on RPG and on adventure games. That's what I like the best. But this channel is spec to Destiny, and certainly for the time to come. Radical Gaming says Dragon Age is amazing. Absolutely. Dragon Age is one of my favorite games of all times, together with Destiny, and they're just absolutely terrific. And I have to say, remains to be seen really how they're going to be spreading out the resources, because the major team at BioWare is dedicated to Anthem, and they already had produced this trailer. You would have seen it during the last Game Awards in November, and they indicated that Dragon Age, the new installment, is obviously in progress, but that the game is not likely to be released within the next 2 to 3 years. So you know, another project on horizon obviously, and I really want to see Dragon Age to be a bit like Anthem with multiplayer and all this, you know, so it would be vast and with lots of different options there for every single gamer. But in terms of the content, I would say personally I feel closer to Dragon Age than to the Skyrim / Elder Scrolls saga, although they're very different. But there's the element of RPG which I feel is stronger on the BioWare front, although I'm a great fan of both games, so I wouldn't like to be just comparing or, you know, putting one against another. I think they're fantastic in separate ways really. And Radical Gaming says, well, obviously reference to Resident Evil, Capcom never disappoint. Absolutely, sir, they never disappoint. And you know, you've seen what they're doing now with the Devil May Cry, the latest installment. It is incredible, and they're working on it and developing it and coming up with different ideas. It really, what was it? They were introducing quite a section during the Microsoft's Mexico City conference a few months ago, and I was astonished. Honestly, I really was. It's just incredible what they do, and I think considering the quality of feedback which has been received since Friday on Resident Evil 2 Remake, it is very likely that they will be pursuing other Resident Evil installments for Remake, and this may well be then setting up a new precedent for the rest of the industry. You know, they might, other developers might decide to remake Half-Life, or you know, any of those massive games of the last 2 decades, and I applaud that. I really do. You know, I really think that that's incredible, and you can make a game, you know, similar sort of frame to frame, but the aura and the atmosphere are going to be very, very different. And all of my gamer friends and associates and people who are connected to this channel who played Resident Evil 2 since Friday said that you recognize the story, but you're playing a completely different game. It's the, you know, eerie atmosphere, it's the survival struggle horror elements which are present everywhere, it's the music, it's the sound, it's just everything. And also the angle, the camera angle is significantly different, so you are engaging with the dialogue better. It's closer to what you see in cinemas on the big screen, so to speak. And definitely Capcom is one of those developers that are you know, setting up the pace for the new things to come, really, the best new things to come, without a doubt. Radical Gaming says, honest opinion, other studios got to do what EA does, free DLC. Well, that itself is, you know, controversial. You will have studios that will provide you with free DLC, but then on the other hand, it depends on kind of contracts that any publisher will have with the game development studios. And you probably heard what happened recently with Bungie and Activision. They went through a divorce, although it was expected they would carry on for at least, you know, the next 3 to 4 years. And if the development studio could be fully independent, then evidently they can be pursuing the annual pass scheme. So you pay a set fee per year, just like what we pay for, you know, our Game Pass on Xbox or PlayStation Plus here on PS4, and then you're receiving all the content and everything for that amount. I think that's probably the best option, because at the end of the day, people who work on the content, they have to be paid, and the actual content will cost, you know, the maintenance and everything else which happens, the support, the overall support for the content. But I think charging always, you know, per DLC and coming up with quite a few of them in a short period of time is obviously of concern. And Radical Gaming says, well, more people would spend money if they didn't do Season Pass. Black Ops 4 I bought like 3 times. Yeah, that's right. Well, Radical Gaming says Black Ops 4 I bought like 3 times in total. What did you buy? 4 different DLCs, right? Or different kind of add-ons which they were offering? Because I've seen them advertised, but didn't really engage. I was playing Black Ops 4 the other day, testing the what's it called, the Blackout mode, and it was very good, has to be said. It really was, and quite surprised. Quite, you know, quite outfits. Yeah. You know, that's the trouble with the games like Black Ops, but not just Black Ops. You have lots of other games where outfits are maybe of no gaming significance, but they look good, and one is doing obviously screenshots, sharing the images on social networking, you know, Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. So they obviously do have that value of connectivity with other existing or potential community members. And well, it's just one of the ways through which those companies make money. I think PUBG, they have also the same sort of thing. I've seen lots of things being offered. And I just want to ask you, have you played this new merger of PUBG and Resident Evil? I've not even entered that arena yet, but I've seen it advertised, and they talked about it in December. Has anyone played that? PUBG meeting Resident Evil? And I want to know, is that the map or what's happening there? I've not really read extensively the online descriptions, but it's certainly something which is of interest to me, because I love PUBG and I love Resident Evil, so, you know, can there be a better merger than those two? Radical Gaming says, I'm sick of monetization. Well, sir, you're not the only one. Lots of other hardcore gamers and, you know, gaming industry veterans are looking at it in the same way. Oh, Radical Gaming says, never heard of it. Yeah, it's either out or it is going to be out. I've seen it advertised. I've seen some bits of news on it, because they talked about it already in November, I think. But I'll look into this, and I'll do some postings on Twitter. At the moment, I've been so preoccupied with Anthem and Destiny 2 and everything which is Destiny 2 related, that I had little time really to engage with all these other issues. But you know, just one of those periods really, in sort of the decade. So obviously there is a lot of hype and anticipation and a lot of material coming in every day. I'm disappointed that they didn't really prevent some of those issues. I don't know what's causing them, and you know what was so troubling for the weekend, but it's quite certain that the BioWare team are testing everything, and there was a short circuit somewhere, right? But I personally don't know at the end of the day who might be, you know, liable or responsible for it. And Rock Games says, all right, thanks you for your thoughts on Anthem. Well, thank you so much, sir, for coming in and participating. I'm really very grateful. There were lots of people early on here at the beginning of my review here, but very few had provided me with their comments and views. And the idea is, the idea is that reviews of Anthem, which obviously, you know, the game is still, you know, offered as pre-order, would then be forwarded to BioWare. And I did say that I'll be running our daily Anthem reviews during this week, and anybody who has any questions or concerns or anything can come in, and I'll be forwarding those issues to BioWare, you know. And indeed, if we were to have, let's say, half dozen people coming in with a particular viewpoint, then we can have also party created. Everyone can talk in real time, and I can send that to BioWare as well, or send a link, and because everything is archived, that they can just listen to it at any time and then find out what people said. The idea is to provide constructive criticism and comments and views which are absolutely tied in with the current issues, for them to be able to look at it and resolve it. That's the idea. Radical Gaming says, "You have a good day and I followed you." Well, thank you very much, sir, for coming in, and most importantly for participating and for following this channel. Thank you very much for being a member of our community, and I hope you will enjoy also Destiny broadcasts and other things I do here. What is really greatly appreciated by the viewers is the input from our community members. We have very many wonderful Destiny veterans, people who know everything about the game and who are also your video gaming industry veterans, and they really present us with some very interesting content and their thoughts and views. So always great to have them, and I have to say there's several who come in and do the Fireteam membership with me on Destiny, and then we talk about all these kinds of issues. It's always interesting, always rewarding, and I'm so grateful for all of those guys coming to my channel, because this is a relatively new channel. I've set it up earlier last year as an experiment, because I run other channels on music and film industries, and it's been very successful. Lots of people came in, and it was all to do with Bungie and Destiny, because people kind of loved the game, and it's like a legendary, massive big game which is there to be played for many years, and such good connectivity and good atmosphere, and really truly rewarding to be a part of that. Really truly rewarding. I'm really so happy. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for coming and for participating. I'll be bringing this Q&A feedback on Anthem to a close for today. I'd just like to say to everyone, thank you for coming. Thank you for your participation. It's been great. And I will run a selection of these Anthem reviews and Q&A sessions during this week. And they're likely to be every single day prior to Friday. So if you have any questions or concerns, jot them down on the paper, and then once we are back on air with our review, you can obviously speak up and present them to me, and consequently they will be presented also to the developer. The idea is to basically generate a full constructive viewpoint on what we've seen so far, and particularly I'm interested to hear from people who experience technical problems, but even more so I'm very interested to hear from people who were perhaps not experiencing many of those and enjoyed the gameplay and able to kind of go through the missions. Well, I want to hear from you, and I want to hear what your views are on the gameplay and what you've seen so far, because that will be equally important. So thank you so much for coming, for listening, for being here with me on the channel. I'm now closing this review, so the broadcast will end very shortly, and I will continue with my Destiny world and the Destiny broadcast very shortly. Hope you will join me there as well, and hope you will enjoy the broadcast and connect with our Destiny veterans and other community members. And thank you for coming, and on that note I will wish you all a very good night.